what do we mean by quality? We look at the existing registers that are out there, both for construction people and for the non-construction areas as well. We look at why the need for construction in the first place, or of a register in the first place. We look at the proposed model, having reviewed all of those registers in Ireland, in the EU, and also some outside of the EU as well. We will then look at the proposed model, and that's the last section on our poster up on the wall. And then I suppose the question, is the time right for all of this? I suppose the time has always been right. It's just now the gap is actually closing. And as I said, 2020 is a wall that's there, that's very much only 5 years away at this stage, and we have to make sure that our workers are up to scratch with that. I suppose firstly, just to distinguish between register and registration. A register is the actual official list. So we've got SafePass register, we've got CSCS cards, registration systems that are run by Solus, for example. Up north and in the UK, we've got the construction skills register, which is an important thing. And of course, as well, we're in discussion with the UK as well as part of our review as well. And in the Brussels meeting that Seamus was referring to, we've good links with our UK partners as well. Whereas the registration then is the actual process of going through that register. And I suppose for some it might be a very simple process. It might be just literally starting from A and going to B with all your qualifications, etc. Might be up to date and up to scratch, etc. Whereas for others there might be different steps that would need to be taken along the way in reaching that registration. So that might be that people might have to come up with their training that they have done in the past. So it might be about putting a whole list of items together, of maybe recognition of their prior learning, etc. And there are models out there for that. The aims, I suppose, of any register ultimately are to raise standards. So the body that will be responsible for this hasn't been decided yet, obviously, is going to look at this. And I suppose if you look at any registration system that we've reviewed, it is about raising the standard. There's an expectancy from the consumer as well, that people on a register are at a particular level, or at least nearly all of them are more or less at the same level as such. If we look at the likes of RAI or Engineers Ireland, etc. It's also to provide recognition, and I think one of the key things that came out from the reviews is that and also amongst our European colleagues, is that the construction worker often feels undervalued. That no matter, like what you were saying, that no matter how good their skill set is, no matter how well they do a job, that it's often not appreciated. And particularly maybe that it's not even recognised as well, or understood by the consumer. Maybe that the view then often develops. Maybe why go to this much effort to put these perfect mitres on architraves and skirtings when it's going to be painted over, that no one will notice the difference. So what value do we put on quality? So that recognition both of their skill set, and maybe they might have 10, 20, 30 years experience at something, and maybe that's often recognised that they have a huge skill set there. And of course, like what you're saying, people who often go on and update themselves with their skill sets and their knowledge base, that how often is it asked for? I know while I worked in construction, not once was I asked for my qualifications. Only in the UK was I ever asked for qualifications. So we don't look for it. We don't seek out the better qualified person, if you like. The other thing about a register is that it's to provide a level of assurance. So it gives people who might be hiring from that register or taking people from that register a sense of assurance. Maybe sometimes not always correctly, but there is that level of expectation that there's a competency associated with being on a register. And I think that's not to be underestimated as well, that is part of this rising tide that we're talking about as well. And I think we talked about the importance of the consumer in all of this. And if we could motivate the consumer to have this greater awareness of quality and that they would demand it, I think that would go some way towards it being identified as being key to the construction industry. Okay, so we reviewed the whole construction registers, so not necessarily construction, but construction-related registers, both nationally at EU level and also some non-EU. And Pat here did a lot of work on that with us as well. We reviewed approximately about 40 existing registration systems, approximately just under 40. We had a few surprises and interesting ones across the way, and I think that maybe this one stands out as being one of them. Any idea what this might be, what this building is? There's one clue in it, one big clue in it. It's actually, yeah, it's quite interesting. It's the chimney might be a little bit of a giveaway or something that stands out here. It's actually, we came across an organisation called the Chimney Sweeps Association of Ireland, and personally I hadn't come across them. I know that in the UK I'd come across something similar, but nothing in Ireland. This is their training centre, and they have a really terrific association accredited by the American Association of Chimney Sweeps. They have this really lovely training centre here whereby they do all their testing. And I suppose when you think about it, that you might say, why the need for all this training is just the brush chimneys? Is that all they do? But of course, when you think of the effect that insulation may have on flues and convective currents, etc., they have a really important role, and particularly around the ventilation requirements, etc., around passive ventilation and so forth. So they give a lot of good advice to the consumer on that. So they've become a kind of a self-educating body, and they educate the consumer as well. So there's quite a nice model there. I think what's common to all is that there's a CPD requirement, not just with this body here or this association, but there's a CPD requirement with all of this. And I think that's where we need to go with the Construction Workers Register as well, which I will explain. Okay, I suppose it wasn't difficult to find a definition of what quality is, but when you looked in relation to quotes, I was trying to choose quotes from, or at least related to the industry in some way, and there's some really interesting ones there. Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent effort. In other words, it's thought out. It just doesn't happen. Quality doesn't happen because, like what you were saying earlier on, that it's the whole process that will give you quality. So if you can do the best fit of windows in the whole wide world, but if the ceiling around it isn't right, what's the benefit of it, etc. So it needs to be all designed in from the start. The Henry Ford one, quality means doing it right when no one is looking, I think can be an apt one as well. Quality is not an act, it is a habit, and I suppose we know that we can develop a habit. I think it's in 21 days you can develop a habit, apparently. Quality is everyone's responsibility, and we never have to stop getting better at it. And I think the bottom one here, I think, is very relevant and pertinent to the industry. That maybe you might say, well, Gucci could say that, couldn't he? But quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. And I suppose the equivalency of that would be the person who buys the expensive car. They will give out about the price for a while and so on, but after a while it'll be all that the car can do, and it's great and it can do this and that. So the price is forgotten down the line, but the quality will always be there.